Good evening. Today is October 10th, 2024, and as chair, I recognize we have a quorum, so I call the Finance Committee meeting of October 10th, 2024 to order. So let's start a new tradition and just do a roll call we can start from the left. Just a roll call.
Dave Remington here.
Gene Buddingen here.
Dennis O'Connell.
Diana Bowley.
Vikram Chabra.
Jim Flynn.
Brian Ganger.
Milind Kanitkar.
Rajesh Vallapudi.
Thank you. So we'll now proceed to our agenda. The item next on our agenda is accepting the minutes of September 19th, 2024. I hope everybody prior to coming to this meeting had a chance to look through them. Are there any requests for updates or clarifications? If not, may I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. We shall now move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Mizikar.
Good evening, Finance Committee members. It's good to see you. We will get to our traditional report on local receipts, but we have a couple good things to share with you in advance of that. I'll start with proud to announce that the town has received a High Performance Government Award from OpenGov. OpenGov is a software vendor. We utilize their product. They have over 400 clients nationwide, and we're one of 10 of their clients that they celebrated at their annual conference as one of their most forward-thinking government agencies and other public sector game changers for how we're utilizing their software to bring services through our website to residents. As we talked with the Finance Committee about, we are endeavoring to reduce paper-based processes. We started several years ago with building permits, but we've rapidly expanded that over the last few years to include all licenses and permitting, whether that's dog licenses, select board licenses. The planning board and ZBA processes are now all 100% online. And we've moved to other progressive uses of their software, including facility bookings, reservation of recreation spaces, and things like that. So we're happy to report that we received the award, but even more proud of bringing services to residents on an online basis and improving our efficiency in that process. So just wanted to share that good news with you.
Congrats.
I think that's awesome news.
And we have more good news. I'm pleased to announce that the town has also received the Government Finance Officer Association's Distinguished Budget Book Award for FY25. To earn recognition, budget documents must meet program criteria and excel as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communication tool. I'd like to express my gratitude to you, the Finance Committee members, for all of your support throughout the development of the budget, as well as the town manager and assistant town manager, and also all of the town staff. There's a lot of hours and effort that goes into this, so super excited and appreciative. This is the first year that the town has received this award, so we look forward to continuing to meet this criteria for FY26 and beyond.
That is very wonderful news, and it's a great reflection on the team. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right, so next we'll dive into some local receipts. So you have a printout, and this is in your drive. This is FY26 year-to-date through quarter one, so July 1st to September 30th. And as you can see, we have collected just over $3.1 million to date, or 21.73% of the FY25 budgeted amount. You can see a couple strong performing categories so far are investment income, and this line in particular is only July and August, so performing very well. In addition to that, other excise licenses and permits and various departmental revenues are performing very well so far.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Dennis.
The penalties and interest, that's also performing very well. Exactly what is that again?
So, I mean, that includes a variety of things. Could be like, let's see, that would be like back interest or penalties on licenses, fees, charges.
Yeah, that's what I'm pulling up the exact list right now.
Dave will have the,
Okay, so is that because we're enforcing that better, or?
I don't know what the anomaly is.
Just Timing of
Dave will,
payments, I
Dave will
think.
grab that. I do think it is a timing thing between the fiscal years. It's, but Dave will
Yep.
dive in on what it is,
Sorry,
just from a definition
Yep.
standpoint to start with.
And I was just wondering what the interest breakdown was versus
Sure.
penalties.
I could probably pull that up through a munis report in a few minutes.
Okay.
But, sorry. Let's pull up the right category.
I think maybe a majority of it is penalties associated with delinquent tax payments.
Okay.
And I know that we've gone out and done some tax title
Tax title.
That's
work,
what I
so,
was
yeah.
Yeah,
thinking, and so that's good, so we're
Yep.
catching up on delinquent taxes. Okay. Yeah, you can get that later
We'll
if you
get the
want.
breakdown
okay, I'll
for
get
you.
the breakdown, yeah.
Yep.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I know it's not a large category, but we've already, above the other excise hotel. Is that also an anomaly, or we
It
underestimated?
is, well, yeah, it was a little bit of both. We underestimated because, the occupancy of the hotels in town right now are being used as migrant shelters. And there was a point in time whenever it was transitioning to the location closer to the Whole Foods, the former Worcester City Motel, where they were looking to change the use of the facility, so it wouldn't have necessarily qualified as a hotel. It would have been outside of that designation as the state, but that's not what has happened, so the hotel tax is still due. We just didn't want to put ourselves in a situation where we weren't going to collect it, but it seems like we'll continue to receive that. Anything else on that one? Okay.
Don't have
Well,
it
then-
now, I'll pull it up after.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I got my answer of what I,
Okay.
Yeah,
Melinda had a question.
Kevin, just curious on that note. So, do we know what state has agreed on, like the yearly contract or whatever the agreement in place for that facility? Is it multi-year?
Yeah, it is multi-year. So the operator has an 8-year contract with the state, but that doesn't mean this facility would be used for that long. It's on an annual basis, as it is right now. We have monthly meetings with the state and the operator of the facility, so we should have plenty of advance notice if the use is gonna change. It's about 80% occupied at this point, which is only, if you equate that back to the former facility, it's only about 50% of the occupancy of the prior facility, that the days in.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes, Brian.
For those categories that are reflecting no collection, is that typical for where we're at this time of year?
the homeless transportation and non-recurring,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, yeah, the pilot is a one-time, once a year.
And the E rate gets filed a little bit later in the year. Yeah, a lot of these will be towards the end of the fiscal year. You'll start seeing those pop up.
Thanks.
Any more questions on local receipts? Okay.
Set?
Yeah.
Do you want us to walk through the warrant? That's all we have on the town manager's report.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we
we'll
can
just
do-
walk through the November 18th, 2024 special town meeting warrant. I do want to note that this is still a draft warrant that the select board will look to consider on October 22nd, look to sign on October 22nd. We've laid out here the schedule of important upcoming meeting dates associated with the special town meeting warrant, including the board signing. Of course, you as a finance committee will hold your public hearing and review each and every warrant article on November 7th. The select board will vote on their recommendations on November 12th, and then the special town meeting is November 18th. There's a couple other public hearings relevant to this, since they're zoning articles, namely one, the article associated with compliance with the MBTA zoning initiative. And those meetings will be held on October 17th and 24th. Those are two public hearings. And then on October 30th is one additional meeting where the planning board will just deliberate and vote on their recommendation for that article. That is subject to change depending on how the two public hearings work out, but that is our plan right now. So,
Didn't have one question.
Yes, please, Dennis.
I know there's some lawsuits going on against the state for that MBTA zoning. Have any of that been settled, or is there any date on when there'll be hearings on it?
so the Supreme Judicial Court heard oral arguments on Monday or Tuesday of this week, and they're now within their 130-day deliberation period to make a decision. So,
Are there any other questions related to the special town meeting warrant draft?
One
Yes.
quick clarification. So we would have our deliberation and recommendations on November 7th following the public hearing?
that's correct, yes. Okay. All right, so we will walk through the articles as we understand them this evening. Again, just trying to preview them. We don't have all the details for you yet, as we're still shaping up those items for each and every warrant article, but we'll try to provide as much insight as we can. And then we'll obviously be in the full public hearing mode, and we'll have department heads where relevant and other folks participate as well. So we will be making some adjustments to the fiscal year 25 operating budget. These include some miscellaneous amendments where we see expenditure needs. One of the largest adjustments will be an additional contribution to the pension system to help increase the normal cost, the contribution for this year, make up for some prior year losses, and making this additional investment will help reduce future investments as we'll begin hopefully earning investment returns on it once it's deposited in a strong market. We will have to make an adjustment to the health insurance as well. We've had a year of extraordinary enrollments in comparison to the normal years, and that has exceeded the budget. One other complicating factor this year is the senior plans. Our retiree health insurance plans rates are going up. We have two primary plans, one's going up 9% and one's going up 6%. The combination of those two is showing a projected budget deficit of a little over $300,000 for this fiscal year. So we would look to make a recommendation and adjust that. The Medicare eligible plans for the seniors are being significantly impacted on the prescription drug side of things, the PDP, and that is associated with federal government changes related to the negotiation of the rates that can be paid for certain drugs, and it's kind of shifting those costs away from into the premiums, and that cost is now being borne by the premiums rather than the subscriber on an out-of-pocket basis. So it's just shifting the cost where it goes. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions about this.
For the increase in the health insurance coverage, is that due to more people onboarding, or is that more
Yes.
people? Okay, so that's all about, we're hiring more people, so
Well,
there's additional costs.
excuse me, sorry, I said, so no, some of it is, new people that we've hired, and, they are joining the health insurance, and maybe the person that was in the position wasn't in it. It's not all due to a net increase in total staff number. So there's more people joining, than a net increase in staff.
Okay, thank you.
It's a real quick
Dennis?
question, follow up on that. Do we know how many people had not been on it for years, and now, I mean, I'm assuming if they have spouses, their spouse might have been carrying the health insurance if they no longer are. They're pulling, do we know if that's coming on, more people are joining, you know?
We can
choosing
get
to go
that
with ours?
data. I don't know off the top of my head, but we can provide that data on what the characteristics are
Yeah.
of the enrollees.
One other follow-up. Do we anticipate any change for the legal fees? I know we've discussed that at several of our meetings. Are we already good, or we're gonna wait and see how things shake out?
At this point in the fiscal year, I think we're comfortable with the budget appropriation. We don't have any significant ongoing litigation at this point, so I think the way we project it right now will be fine.
Excuse me, one last question.
Sure.
Does that mean we're almost come to a decision on the deal?
It's in the hands of the judge, so I wouldn't anticipate a significant additional cost at this
And
point.
is there a time frame the judge has?
No.
Go to Article 2.
Keep going?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So Article 2 is the Transportation Network Companies per ride assessment. So we receive 10 cents on every transportation network company, Uber and Lyft rides that originate from the town of Shrewsbury. So we received disbursements from the Commonwealth for the past few fiscal years, and we need to appropriate those funds. We have limited ability on where it can be appropriated, and we traditionally push this into our sidewalk expansion and improvement program. So, we would look to appropriate these funds that come into us from the state into an account that we can use for mobility initiatives.
Any questions on Article 2? Gene?
Approximately how many dollars are we talking about?
It's $30,000 for the past 3 fiscal years. So about $10,000 a year.
Could I have one follow-up on that? In reference to the sidewalks, are the vehicles all safe as far as the senior center goes, as far as maintenance, et cetera, et cetera?
Our vehicle fleet,
In other words, could that money had been used for the transportation at the senior center?
it needs to support alternative modes of transportation. So I'm not sure that we could use it for vehicular repairs, but I can look into that a little.
Well, the only reason I ask is you've got several additional vehicles under grants and things, and if they go away, we've kind of felt that, it's part of our operation now, that we've got all these vehicles to do the transportation. They go away, what do we do as far as replacement goes
Mhm.
on there?
True. Yeah.
I'm just asking, I
Yeah.
think the sidewalk's a good thing,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering,
Okay, we'll look into whether it can be used for any vehicle maintenance, repair, replacement.
Milind?
Right. Just follow up on that, like, do we usually, like, what's order of operation? Like, do we use this money to repair existing sidewalks, or do we kind of target something to extend or add new sidewalks?
Normally, it's we're looking to repair and maintain the sidewalks that we have. The only plans that we have for sidewalk expansion right now is along Prospect Street as we build out the new cemetery and park. Sidewalk expansion is really challenging because it often means, property acquisition if the roadway isn't wide enough, and that's normally the case in town, so we're just looking to maintain.
I do want to follow. If it was improved on Prospect, would it be on the right-hand side or the left-hand side going up Prospect right now?
If you're moving away from the town hall, like towards North Street, it would be on the left side.
So it's gonna be in the section in front of the new
Yes.
cemetery?
Yes.
So it'll just start and then deadhead right at the entrance to the Prospect Park?
We're gonna, a little bit beyond that, and try to tie it into, what street comes up there that has a sidewalk on the right side?
Spring Street,
Maybe Spring Street?
Yeah. right by the, the school, I can't think of the name of it.
It's a Montessori school, I know
Montessori,
exactly what you're talking
yeah.
about, yep.
Yep.
Miriam Ave is right there.
Thank you.
Yes,
Just a quick question, Alex, you'd mentioned 30K over the last 3 years. Is that common for them to be 3 years in arrears, or is it?
So they distribute this every fiscal year. It's just such a
Small
small
amount.
amount that we've typically taken it in 2 or 3 year.
And how long is this program, if I may?
Sure.
I think this is the 5th year.
Great, thank you.
Diana?
I was just gonna ask what we've done with it previously, like where did it go if we're now doing something different with it?
We've always dedicated it to sidewalk. Most recently, we normally tied in with a roadway improvement project because now we are obligated when we make roadway repairs where there's sidewalk connectivity, they have to be ADA accessible, so we put those yellow pads in and shape. So that's primarily, and you know, a single crossing like that probably can be about $10,000 worth of work on both sides of the street. So, you know, with the new concrete and the slopes and the pads and all that stuff, the new curbing that we have to do, it goes pretty quick.
Okay, appears no more questions on Article 2. We can go to Article 3.
Thank you. So this will actually be a larger article that we'll want to spend a little bit more time with you on during the public hearing process. What we're looking to do is appropriate funds, transfer from free cash, money to continue design work up to 60% design level for the facility that has been investigated for the replacement and renovation at 211 South Street for the Department of Public Works. And then some design work for ADA accessibility and life safety systems and, you know, cosmetic repairs and improvements to the town hall. So this would, again, just be for design work. We're targeting about $1.8 million for this, and it would bring both of those projects into the 60% design, which would then put us in a position to fund the project, hopefully sometime in the spring. At this point in time, we may consider a portion of the project for a debt exclusion through a borrowing, but the cost will be split between the utility rates and the tax rate. And we're looking to we've talked about this a lot. I think we talked about it here with the committee some, and certainly at the select board in their public hearings. We're targeting moving the Department of Public Works Administration out of the second floor of this building into the second floor in the expanded building at South Street. That will preclude the need to expand this facility. You know, we're out of space in this building. That would free up our ability to keep the school administration here and get a little bit more room for staff, both for school administration and municipal operations. Doing this at one time brings some efficiencies to it. The heart of the work for the town hall is life safety. You know, much of this building really from this room back is original 1966 when it was built. The 4 bathrooms in here haven't been touched. There's no sprinkler system in the front of the building. The HVAC system is over 25 years old. So we look to make those simple yet important changes to this building to maintain it and modernize it at the same time. We would enhance communications capabilities and modernize this room, things like that in that project. So, but this is really just for design work, getting an appropriation from town meeting using cash that we have on hand, and then just, preparing for the spring to present a full project.
So I had just a question on this. In the wording of the article, it says the renovation or replacement. So is there a possibility of having to rebuild this building or portions of this building or?
Not this
South
building.
Street?
Yeah, the renovation or replacement, that would just be at the 205 to 211 South Street.
So it's potentially to be rebuilt, portions of it, or,
Yeah, so the plans for that site include the demolition of the water and sewer garage. So if you're looking at that site from South Street, that's the L-shaped garage to the left. And then the building that's straight back, that's larger, would be renovating the existing portion and adding on, about doubling the size of that building, which is where all operations, water, sewer, highway, stormwater, parks maintenance, fleet management would all, and DPW administration would all operate from one location. So we're getting an efficiency by using the existing building that we have there, that is salvageable and contains, fleet management and highway right now, and expanding the footprint to include water and sewer.
Question.
Right.
Thank you. Are there other towns of similar sizes that may have already built and kind of established structures like this that we could work off of?
Absolutely. Not that would preclude us from doing all our design work, but we have, picked an architect that has experience in developing public works facilities. It's a pretty simple building, I do have to say. It's a steel structure. It's a big garage, so it's not too complicated. But we have toured those facilities and looked at what other towns are doing.
Thank you.
David?
So I walked through that building, I thought, yeah, we need to do something here, and I know we need to do something here as well at Town Hall. When I talked to Keith, and I wish he was here, I was talking about, hey, debt exclusion is gonna be tough. He said, no, we're not gonna need it. I have my funds.
Mm-hmm.
We went from 16 million to 32 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had mission creep.
Mm.
So now we're on a path, instead of moving money from his utility funds to construction, we have to have free cash moved over.
Mm.
Then we have to get approval to move his 16 million over. And then we have to have a vote to have a debt exclusion in May. Then we have to have the town make the debt exclusion, vote for it. So it's a much harder path. So it seemed like there was multiple projects put together into one project, but it may have complicated that. If that makes sense, that's my first question. The second question is, in the town meeting, we just gave them $18 million for the water treatment plant as a debt exclusion.
Mm-hmm.
If they have $16 million of free cash, because that is a critical need, why didn't they use the $16 million of free cash to pay for that program, instead of us having some cash and some debt and debt, because the debt's the same if we have two? Why didn't we just go, okay, pay the money here, we'll have one debt exclusion vote? Does that make sense? Those are the two questions, if you understand.
Sure. Yeah, so I can help clarify. So the cost of the project is certainly different than we anticipated, but there's the project as conceived and originally addressed in June of this year, when the committee was established, is the same. So it was to look at 211 South Street for all DPW operations and see if there was an opportunity to benefit this building through that. So we were incorrect in the original cost estimates for the work that needs to be done. The money that's coming from the utilities is not cash on hand. It will be raised through the utility rates and not through the tax rate. So when Mr. Snowden has been developing the long-term financial projections for the utilities, he's incorporated costs for a major capital improvement like this into it. So these funds will fit within the utilities' long-range financial projections while maintaining the self-imposed cap or limitation on annual rate increases for those. But it's not cash on hand. So we will always, the project would have always has needed a borrowing authorization. What is different is the consideration of whether or not we seek a debt exclusion for the portion that's going to be funded by the tax levy. And we think that at this point in time, with the amount of money that we think is responsible for and by the general fund, it makes the most sense to ask for a debt exclusion, really for two purposes, which we will show a lot more detail at the next meeting. The first is to not utilize funds that can be used for the broader operation and benefit the operating budget. And the second is we're in a really good position with debt service where we can incur additional debt But we have debt rolling off, so it's not going to increase the tax bills. So we have over the next, between fiscal year '24 and '27, $1.2 million in debt service rolling off. So we look to take advantage of that and keep our capital investments going without, again, impacting the tax bill.
Gene?
I have two questions. On the initial discussion and presentation, it was just gonna be a couple administration people there at the garage. Now you've gone to a second floor. How many people will we be moving from here to there?
30.
30. Okay. The next question is, looking at the building itself, when I went through on the tour, there seems to be a tremendous amount of cluster of equipment all over the place. And I didn't see anything during the discussions about racking some of that stuff. Like snow plows, for instance, on a truck that are sitting there, you know, waiting for winter. Those plows could be put up in shelving, opening up another whole bay, for instance, one after another, whether it was in the highway or the water or any of them. I think that should be a consideration.
Yep.
Going into that.
Okay,
We
yeah,
can Include that in the
absolutely.
block meetings, yep.
Yep.
It opens up an awful lot more floor space, and a good example was the Park and Recreation. I mean, they had fertilizer, and spreaders,
Right.
all,
Yep.
all over the floor space, which, to me, I think it was a very simple design, could have eliminated all that on there. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Oh, just to follow up, I absolutely understand, I appreciate the explanation. It's hard to kind of explain to someone that the utility bill's coming in, we're getting money for that to fund construction site B. But we didn't do that with construction A last year. And I feel like we just had a debt exclusion for 18 million, and now we're gonna ask for a debt exclusion again. Does that make sense?
They're not debt exclusions. So the only part that would be excluded is the general fund portion. So the utilities borrowings come from the rates, so they will impact the water and sewer rates. And that will be the same for the water treatment plant and for the portion of the cost of this project that is associated with the utility operations, water, sewer, stormwater, and solid waste. Those rates will contribute to the debt service, not the tax bill.
So the $18 million we approved is going to be done through utility rates as well.
Correct. That was a
Correct.
borrowing authorization, and
Right.
we lock in the rates through the state revolving fund.
Okay.
We were awarded funding through that project, the Clean Water Trust.
So through the utilities, we're going to be able to fund $34 million in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's what was built into the debt service models for both utilities over the next 5 years, with projected rate increases of no more than 5%. If we can do lower each year, we will do our best to not raise the rates any more than 5%. That is the intent there, yep.
Right, because if we can do it without a debt exclusion vote, I think that'd be great.
Well,
I think-
we will need a debt exclusion for the general fund
Front, yeah.
portion. Yep,
If the project stays this scope.
correct.
But if it was like the town hall was broken off or something was broken off, that doesn't matter. At this scope, that's what you need.
That's correct.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions on Article 3? Diana?
I apologize, I wasn't able to go on the tour and things like that, but I just wanted to double check, right? We see it to be a net benefit overall to co-locate those 30 people there, and there's no anticipated downsides from them not being co-located here at Town Hall.
No, I mean, because DPW operates solely on the second floor right now. They handle their own traffic, their permits, all the payments are currently received upstairs. So we can literally take all operations that are on the second floor and move them to South Street. Now, does that mean that, the division managers and the director aren't in this building? Yes, does that, but professional management, like, we'll just have to deal with that, there'll be changes in our operations because of it, but I don't think it's necessarily that they have to be in the building to ensure, you know, continued good operations. It's also, you know, a really good way to help what's in this building and not have to expand the footprint or put a second story on this building or something like that, which we previously explored when we started looking at the police station, and the term wasn't feasible.
Question.
Yes, Dennis?
You just mentioned, you know, DPW has their own bill paying and all that. I mean, has there been any thought about consolidating all those individual pieces of like bill paying, you know, as you said, into one place? Because you said you moved it as a whole department, there wouldn't
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
anyone else. I'm just wondering how many departments are like that, and
Well, so I shouldn't have said bill pay. I should have said like permit issuance and stuff. All the things that we receive are processed in through the ClearGov system at this point. You know, most of the payments that we receive electronically. But they do have their own dedicated permitting staff that goes through that all. So,
is there a reason we couldn't have one permitting staff for all the different permitting places?
yeah, I mean, it's so specialized, right? When we talk about these permitting, we're talking about driveway curb cuts, we're talking about water and sewer connections, we're talking about things that need to be reviewed by DPW engineering staff on a really technical basis. We have frontline, we have a business management division that, you know, is 8 to 11 staff that handles the administrative aspects of the work. That's the processing of the applications and the customer service interactions, but the heart of the work is done by our engineering team and management staff to approve those things. You know, which is, you know, really diverse and different, you know, from what the town clerk's office does or the assessor's office does.
There's just one thought. So if me as a citizen, if I need to interact, right, right now, it's nice, I know I come to town hall regardless. Will that change and now I need to know, I need to go to one place or the other? Do you see?
It would be, but if you're gonna pay your water bill, you're still gonna come to the town hall, to the treasurer collector's office and pay your water bill. If you're gonna pay your water bill and wanna put in a driveway, I mean, you know what I mean? So it would be very few and far between that I think, you know, there could be an example where you wanted to talk to someone in DPW to get a new trash or recycling container or something like that. So there would be some efficiencies there, but there's, you know, I don't think there's a lot of one-stop shopping that goes on between DPW and the other aspects of the customer service operations here.
Any other questions on Article 3? Not, we can go to Article 4.
All right, catch up here. So the prudent investor policy is being proposed. This committee is probably the most familiar with that initiative. That's something that you have talked a lot about, most recently at your June meeting with Bartholomew, our investment company, and allowing us to invest our trust funds, like our OPEB trust, into other investment vehicles that aren't just the very limited legal risk. These investments are long-term focused, and being able to invest them more broadly but still very safely should provide higher returns and mean ultimately that the cash contributions from the taxpayers would be less over time as investment gains are increased.
Any questions on Article 4? Not, we can go to Article 5.
So Article 5, we'll spend also some good time on this at the public hearing. We are looking to propose amendments to our personnel bylaw. They really fall into two categories. One, and they're all focused on maintaining competitiveness as an employer through the benefits that are provided to employees. So the first would be alteration of the time bands when employees receive vacation leave. And it would be increasing the amount of leave that occurs in the earlier portions of our careers, or of the careers of the employees here with the town. So right now, when an employee starts, they get 2 weeks of vacation, and that would be increased to 3 weeks. The maximum leave that can be obtained by an employee is 5 years, and that is currently takes 25 years to get to, and we propose to move that, still keep it at 5 years, but you would obtain,
You
Years
mean
of
5
leave.
weeks?
5 weeks.
I'm sorry,
You mean 5 weeks, right?
5 weeks, I'm sorry.
Because I would like to apply for this
Yeah,
position.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, are there any open positions?
So you would get 5 weeks of leave after 10 years of service. So we know that the average employee that's here with the town right now has been here for 5 years when we look across all employees. And we also know that 2 years is, you know, a rather limited amount of time in today's employment market, and many other, not only towns, but private businesses that we ultimately compete with have moved beyond that as the bottom. So that's one portion. The second portion of it is enhancing our sick leave and expanding what employees can use that leave for. We have a very unique sick leave system here in Shrewsbury. Most municipalities and state employees receive a day and a quarter of sick leave per month, so they get 14 days of sick leave per year. In Shrewsbury, we give our employees 5 days of sick leave per year. And if they need to be out longer than that with proper medical documentation, they go on what we call our short-term disability program, and that they get paid 80% of their wages for, depending on your tenure, up to 52 weeks for your own personal illness. So where we lag with the remaining market is all of our leave, whether it's the 5 sick days that you get or our longer-term disability program, is only for you as an employee. We don't offer any type of paid family medical leave to support a loved one if they're ill. Our sick leave cannot be used to take a child or even yourself to a medical appointment. You actually have to be ill. So we are looking to change the number of sick days that an employee gets from 5 to 7 total. And we look to introduce a paid family medical leave of up to 6 weeks for caring for a loved one. There's a couple different aspects of the program, and I'll try to hit them all. We would reduce the total disability leave of an employee for their own personal illness from 52 weeks back to 20 weeks. And we would allow caring for an injured service member, if they're a family member, up to 26 weeks. We're also introducing parental leave. And we would allow for up to 12 weeks of parental leave for the adoption of the child, the birth of the child, or the care of a child. So we would be affording leave to the non-birthing parent to support the new child, whether they're adopted by the family or what have you during that time. And that's something that we don't offer right now. So when someone is out on those longer term leave, they'd be paid at 80% of their wages. We are not subject to the state's laws. Municipalities are exempt from the paid family medical leave laws within the Commonwealth. We look to, in some ways, mirror, but we're not always exactly consistent with what the state provides. Just to be clear, we are not looking to have employees make a monetary contribution into that, and we'll provide that full financial analysis between the benefits that they currently have and what we're proposing to change as we move forward, and how the 80% works for the average employee versus how the state operates, which is a percentage or a maximum cap that you can earn while you're out on leave. So look forward to getting into those details, but happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
So, is this in line with neighboring towns? Are we sort of behind as far as our vacation policy and all?
So we're more on the front edge of this, the leading edge of this, with such a comprehensive set of changes. Nantucket is the only community that currently has adopted paid family medical leave. Some communities have parental leaves, But again, most communities, along with those 14 days of sick leave that you get, are broader in how they allow you to use them, so they can be to care for others. And that, normally, employees accrue up to 120 days. So year over year, you can hold up to 120 days, and we don't allow any of our sick leave to be carried over from year to year. You know, employees either use it, or they can convert it to vacation time or get paid out for it right now, so.
Gene,
Oh, Dennis was first. Go.
Dennis?
I had two questions. One is, do we have an estimate of what it was gonna cost the town to do this?
I don't anticipate any additional expense. We can show you when we've had employees out on long-term leaves, how we've managed that. Again, for an employee's own personal illness, we currently provide 52 weeks of leave at 80% of their salary, and we look to change that back from 52 weeks to 20 weeks. So we're reducing one of the, the biggest leave options that employees are provided. Now, this would be mandatory for employees that are hired July 1, 2025 or after. This is how we've moved from sick leave plan 1 to sick leave plan 2 to sick leave plan 3, and it's always been, a date and time, and then everyone's forced into it. We can provide some cost estimates. Again, we'll provide an illustration of what the median wage is within the community and what the 80th percentile is, and all of that.
And then, are we gonna, we have the walkthrough of the budget hearings, are we gonna get this stuff in advance of that, well in advance of that, so people can read and really understand what questions we're gonna wanna ask during that meeting?
Sure, we can provide you with a summary memo on.
Yeah, and even some of the facts and, numbers in there.
Sure.
And then the last piece was on the vacation schedule, the changing in vacation policy. Is that gonna be a net cost to us? Letting people accrue their 5 weeks at 10 years versus 25 years, what do we think the actual cost is gonna be? 'Cause
How would you like us to cost that out? What would you think would change our costs in that analysis that would make sense?
well, there'll be more people on vacation, so there'll be less work done during those times. So how many extra weeks of vacation will be given out to the overall staff by doing that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's gonna increase our costs. I understand there's a productivity question that you may have with it, but,
Yeah, it could lead to overtime, it could lead to other things.
I wouldn't anticipate that, but we can look at the numbers. When someone's out on vacation, we're not, backfilling that time with overtime or bringing in other staff or anything like that. But we can show you the average cost of employees and look at that from a number.
And the average number of extra weeks that will be given out.
Sure, yeah. Does anyone think that amount of leave is inconsistent with what you see?
I'm not
in
saying there's
the
anything wrong with going to that type of leave.
market? Okay, yeah,
But there is a perceived cost that
Sure.
you're gonna have more vacation days, so people will be working less. And,
Sure.
you're getting less work out of them, I guess, that's the cost.
Just quick follow-up. I think that's, what you're presenting is more like the industry standards, what's going on out in the workforce. Those are the types of things they're offering. My question, follow-up on the budget would be, is if somebody's out on the long-term disability, there's definitely gonna be some cost increase unless you don't want his work being done, individual, man or woman, being out for that long term. When you bring somebody in,
Traditionally, we have not. The workload's been subsumed by the departments. We have, even in the last few years, we've had some people out for the full duration of the 52 weeks, and we haven't hired or backfilled. That work has been done by others.
but I just think if you're expanding this vacation and sick leave and everything, there's gonna be some areas that you may need some help in.
Sure.
So I think you should be thinking about a little bit of money somewhere along the line to cover some of those things, because all of a sudden, the tax bills don't go out, that type of thing? Or do you shift somebody from another department, you bring in a temp, or
Sure.
where does that money come from? So I would think it'd be an ideal thing to have at least a few dollars to start with.
Sure.
If you didn't use it,
Yeah.
turn it back.
Yeah, so one quick question, what percentage of employees using the short-term disability over any certain period of time? So if we shorten that now by expanding other benefits, will that have any impact?
So what percentage currently use it? I mean, I would think it's, on the average year, less than 1% of employees would use that. I mean, I think since I've been here, I know of, off the top of my head, 5 employees that have been within the short-term disability. Maybe 1 or 2 of those have been on the disability for, you know, a full year or significant amount of the year that's afforded to them.
So reducing those short-term to 26 will not have any impact.
I mean, it would impact the employee that needs more than the 20 weeks of leave, but we have recently introduced, you know, voluntary benefits that they'd be able to, you know, acquire, you know, a financial, you know, an insurance policy or something to help them with those costs.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, and look, we're not trying to dismiss employees for medical reasons or things like that, but when we look at it, we have a leave program right now that affords 52 weeks of time off for, you know, personal illness, and you know, getting that into, I think, a more reasonable, shorter duration of time will help us make long-term decisions within departments when we have absences and things like that, versus guaranteeing a benefit for, you know, such a period of time.
David?
So normally, in the public sector, the person can make more than the government sector. And the government benefits are better, so that's sort of always been the balancing act between the two. And when I hear this, how much input from the personnel that work here did they get to make this plan? Because obviously what you had before was far lower than I think a lot of municipalities give for benefits. And we can't say to people, we want you to look less than what you make the private sector and have worse benefits. I think it's one or the other. So I'm happy they overlooked, but was there input from the employees on this, on what they would want for benefits to retain them, if that makes sense?
We shaped our decisions based off of the annual employee survey that we do and exit interviews and the feedback that we've received. The vast majority of the work has been done between the Human Resources Department and the Personnel Board.
Okay.
So that's how we've arrived with this. But, you know, I will say the kind of guiding light in this has been the state's paid family medical leave law. and identifying the gaps between what leave is available and actually a requirement for the state government, for every employer in the Commonwealth, for the most part, except for municipalities.
Does that have any tie-in with productivity according to their studies?
I'm sorry.
Does productivity, is there any studies related to productivity if you get better vacation times?
Of our
No,
stuff
with
particularly?
respect to the PMFL that the state is sort of directing us to. Is
Mhm.
there any sort of, is it driven by any of that sort of analysis?
I don't know of any analysis on that, but it's certainly something that we can dig into. I'm not aware of it, to be honest with you.
Any other questions on Article 5?
Just a curiosity for a point, right? So, do we have maternity leave currently, or?
Yeah, 12 weeks, or under the care of a doctor up to the 52 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're changing then is that it's now parental and not just,
Correct, yeah. I could be off on that. I mean, the maternal part of that for childbirthing may be within that 20-week category, but we'll have the full presentation and send stuff to you in advance when we get there, or when we come back.
Any other questions on Article 5? If not, we can go to Article 6, which is related to MBTA zoning.
So this would be proposing the specific zoning bylaw that would provide for the opportunity to develop high-density housing up to just shy of 1,500 units within a zoning district that would span Route 20, basically encapsulating from the Shrewsbury Commons development westward through 409 South Street and then across Route 20 into the property at 33 Green Street. We have had our zoning bylaw language reviewed for compliance, pre-adoption review at the State Executive Office and of Housing and Livable Communities. They have found no fatal flaws or required changes to the language. They've, quote, cautioned us in six areas to make sure that other aspects of our zoning law that may come into play are not in conflict of what is Chapter 40A, Section 3A, which is the MBTA zoning law. So those things that we need to look at is making sure that we have clarity on how many parking spaces are required for visitors on multifamily developments, that we can't require additional community amenities to be a part of the site plan approval process, so we can't compel someone to put in a clubhouse or a swimming pool or something like that. They cautioned us in a couple other areas as it they requiring us to include a portion of the frontage of the public roadways around all the districts. There were 6 areas, but again, we don't need to make any exact changes to the language that we've proposed. We met with them in a conference call. We don't have that in writing yet, but that's how the state does their process. They wanted to get us the language, and they'll follow up with the bylaw, and they're prioritizing the timing of community special town meetings and the process relating to that when they're sending out their letter. So all in all, really pleased with how clean our bylaw was in the pre-adoption review. We'll go through the map. I know there was financial discussion with the Finance Committee when we had this conversation in April about our previous proposal, so we'll be prepared to talk about that and cost impacts as best we can project. And then, of course, the Planning Board will be holding their public processes between now and your meeting on November 7th.
Any questions on Article 6? Diana?
I really appreciated all of the financial estimates that you guys put together in April. I found that extremely helpful and valuable. I'm assuming that most of those calculations are roughly the same, even though we're changing the overlay area, or you're gonna need to redo all of those calculations?
So we have redone them. They are a little bit different because part of the spring proposal was including a mixed-use component, which would have offset some of the housing density that would have been required in our district, but the state rejected that in the spring. So we won't be able to include a mixed-use component with our developments. They've determined that those type of requirements can only be done in urban centers, so it would only be applicable in our town center zoning district, but that's not where we're proposing this for. So in short, between the mixed-use proposal and the current proposal, the net number of new units that could be developed has gone up. But the calculations generally still show a net gain in tax revenue from developments like this. But yeah, it is a little bit different, but we're prepared to.
How many new units or additional units are we now gonna have to put in without the mixed zoning?
So
Is it like 300?
we're required to zone for the 1,500. I think the total net number of new units that we could perceive is, I don't want to speak the wrong number. It's over 500 though.
Okay.
Of course, the strategy in developing our proposal in this area is because we know there's interest and already permitted and existing housing in most of the district that's being proposed. So.
David?
So on South Street and Route 20, they're proposing another unit to go in.
Correct.
Would that be included in the new number? So if it gets happening, they do build it, would that be part of the 500?
Yes, it would be part of the 500 units that, net number of units that the zoning would allow for. I just being cautious in saying that because we have to zone for 1,500 units that we're not required to produce the housing. But yes, in the grand scheme of things, there's an open field there now and, you know, the 200 units that are proposed there for 409 South Street would fall within the zone.
Yeah, okay, I was just afraid that because it was 40B, they're gonna get in there before the zoning hits and then it doesn't count.
No.
Okay, great, that was,
Yep.
Thank you.
May I ask another question? I obviously we'll get into more details, but one of the concerns that I have with the shift from kind of on Route 9 to now being fully on Route 20 is really the ability of Route 20 to handle increased traffic. So is that something that's been part of the discussions?
Yeah, it really has. So one of the reasons that we do think that we can accommodate it, or the Route 20 can accommodate it, is because of the planned investment in there that will be out to bid this spring and under construction about a year from now. There's a $30 million federal and state investment that's going to occur from South Street eastward to the Northborough line. And we also know that if the UPS development along Centec Boulevard moves forward, that there's significant investment that will be required at the intersection of Centec Boulevard and on Route 20, which is a pinch point. You know, you come up the hill, you lose a lane, you go to the, you know, you get to the traffic light there at Cherry Street and Centec. So that would all be improved in the relative short term. So zoning there, we think, is an area that we're making significant transportation infrastructure improvements in the next 3 years, starting within the next 3 years.
Okay. Is there, if I may have a quick follow-up, but there isn't anything in the next that covers from Centec into the west into Worcester, because that's already been as part of the.
Yes, some of it has been done. We have a master plan for the whole corridor, but, you know, let's say the UPS development does do some work, let's just say for argument's sake, past the Candy Mansion. There's nothing really proposed beyond that, except for some turning lanes where Physique Instrumente is being built at 440 Hartford Turnpike coming up the hill eastbound.
Okay.
So.
Milind?
So just follow up, I mean, I do share, you know, what Diana said, and also in the select board, you know, member Teresa Flynn had also mentioned about that there are a lot of projects going in that area. So have we played out like best case scenario, worst case scenario? I know you said like we don't have to produce that many number of units, but have we played out what if scenario, like what's the best case? Like, let's say 40% of the land gets developed, that's best case, right? Worst case, like, okay, 95%. What kind of infrastructure improvements we as a town would be looking at if that happens?
Yeah, we do understand those figures, and know, generally speaking, we're happy to get into details, like we have the water and sewer capacity to be able to handle that. The traffic and roadway infrastructure improvements that we are making is within that area. Now, you know, it's not on Route 9, but, you know, Route 9 and Route 20 are really close there. We think that level of transportation infrastructure is important and noteworthy, especially like if you consider 409 South Street. You know, you can get westbound on Route 9 or Route 20 if you choose to, right? So there's not I mean, we have 2 4-lane corridors right in that immediate area. We think that, you know, is important and provides capacity. So, but yeah, we do have those scenarios on, you know, what does it look like if 1,500 units are built? We do have controls in place in our zoning that, you know, restricts the height of the units. So we do feel we have a good framework around the maximum number of units that can be developed, and it is you know, at the minimum zoning that we're required to provide for.
And just if I may ask follow-up, so alternatively, on a positive side, will it improve our chances to get some additional grants from state if we want to proactively improve infrastructure?
It could. We know if we don't zone for it, then, you know, according to the state law, that we wouldn't be eligible for grants. I'm really happy to, Melinda and I didn't plan this, but I'm really happy to say that earlier today, we received notice that we'll receive a $500,000 design grant for a new connector road to design a new connector road through the 33 Green Street property from South Street to Green Street. So that is through the state's new housing law and the housing bond bill that was put in place in 2022. So we received that from Secretary Augustus and Housing and Livable Communities. And that's only because housing is being developed within the community in that area that we're eligible to receive that. So hopefully if the state is gonna say housing is important and wave the stick, that they will also bring the support to us like they have with this $500,000 grant. And I'm excited about the $500,000 grant, not only because it will cover the entire design cost, but also because normally when the state invests in the design of something, they will invest in the future construction of it. Can't guarantee that, right? It's a competitive process every year, but they like to sequence their funding. So we're happy about that grant.
Thank you.
Rajesh, you had a question?
Still debating.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyone else?
let me ask. So it's a legal one. So I know Milton went in front of the Supreme Justice, right? So does the municipal association has any stand on that case,
Sure.
for
Yep.
or against it?
So the Massachusetts Municipal Association, full disclosure, which I'm a board member of, submitted a letter to the courts, just basically saying that the legislature was intentional in what they wrote when they signed the law, which says that communities, if you don't comply, will not receive grants, and that any enforcement beyond that is contrary to the legislation. You know, so, you know, the background of that case is that the Attorney General is saying to the town of Milton, you decided not to comply and we're going to force you to comply. That's not what the legislation says.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, Milind?
One more question about the 409 South Street. I mean, I read it in community, right? Like the builder has an option. If this goes through, they have an option to convert from 40B to MBTA. Is that?
They could. Our conversations with the developer includes the a local initiative program application, a LIP program. By signing off on that and keeping it in the 40B process provides the developer with incentives through the financing program, which we think is likely to keep the developer in the program. And we're also negotiating a development agreement, terms which are being negotiated, but we have those things in mind.
So is there, as a town, can we like keep him in 40B and not convert it?
We're gonna try to partner with him to do that, yeah.
Thank you.
If there's zoning in place that allows by right, that's the whole point of the state legislation, is to preclude communities from restricting the development of housing. So we need to find a good partner, which I think we have, you know.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can move on to Article 7.
So I'll just take a couple of these together, if you don't mind. So Articles 7, 8, and 9 are 3 Community Preservation Committee-sponsored articles using funding to make a variety of direct improvements and planning for the architectural survey and preservation of the historic First Congregational Church off of Church Road and Route 140. So there's 3 articles associated with that. It's not a significant amount of funding in total, and we'll provide all those details in the committee's folder in advance of the meeting. The fourth, Article 10, fourth Community Preservation Committee article, which would be further restoration of the historic gravestones at the Mountain View Cemetery. So I'll pause there with regards to the CPC articles.
Gene?
That's a question. How does the church get tied into that, the CPA?
They're eligible as they are a historic landmark, and private nonprofit entities are eligible for funding through the CPC for purposes like this. So,
Do you know what they're gonna do with the funds?
it's my understanding that it's mostly like lightning protection for parts of the building that don't have it, and some exterior renovations. They have limited use of CPC funds because they are a private entity, and it's a lot of it to do with the exterior architectural features and the preservation of those things, but I do think one of them is lightning protection.
One is Leighton.
Yeah.
Could I just do one follow? Where they have in their steeple outside companies
Mhm.
that are renting space, and you say lightning protection,
Mhm.
would that protect those companies?
I don't know. I can't believe those wouldn't be protected already, but that's just my gut,
Yeah.
but we can ask that. We'll
Yeah.
get the answer to that. I believe there's, speaking out of turn completely, I believe there's a portion of the church that doesn't have any lightning protection right now.
Oh, I'm sure there is, because of the age
Yeah.
of the church. But in the tower, there is at least 4 or 5 companies.
Sure, yeah.
That
We'll get that answer.
provide the
Yeah.
antennas.
Any other questions on the CPC articles? Dinah?
Yeah, just a quick question on 10. Is this, could you refresh my memory if this is because they misstated which funds they were pulling from?
Exactly, yeah. So they identified too much of a source of funds that they didn't have, so this is utilizing the general reserve. You know, there's like a historic reserve and a housing reserve, so, and then there's a general. So they'd be pulling money from the general reserve for the historic preservation purposes.
Just one follow-up. Does the CPC have plans? I know that it's very early, they're learning and all of this, but trying to get it right the first time moving forward, or?
Yeah, they are going through their learning pains. We all are, not just the committee, right? It's new for all of us, so that one, I think we as staff members could have noticed that a little bit earlier in their process. But yeah, we're trying to get it right.
Okay, thank you.
No one likes to sit in front of 240 people and do it again, me included. So.
Any other CPC-related questions? If not, Article 11.
Yeah, so Article 11 is funding for the historic 300th, or for the 300th anniversary celebration committee. We previously made a deposit into the statutory account that the committee has for the 300th celebration. The interesting part about that account is that it's limited to expenditures within 1 year prior to the actual anniversary. So since these events take more than 1 year, we're looking to just set funds aside in a general account. The select board had committed or recommended originally that they get $25,000. We put 10 in, so we'd look to use $15,000 in free cash in a general warrant article, and they would be able to have access for that as soon as it's appropriated by town meeting.
Any questions on Article 11? If not, I believe we are done with the draft review. Thank you, Mr. Mizikar. Thank you, Kev. Okay, so we shall,
May I ask one
sure,
question?
please, Dinah.
I know on some of the earlier drafts, there was some discussion about accessory dwelling units, since that's going to be, and I just wanted to ask the question, why did that get dropped from this fall? Will it be revisited in the spring?
Yeah, so a couple of things on the ADUs. Absolutely will be revisited in the spring. we're still waiting for full state regulation to be written on that. We do not feel that the community is at any risk, for a number of reasons. Because while the state law will supersede any local bylaws, we don't have anything that's in conflict or that we're overexposed from in comparison to the two. Certainly it'll broaden the locations of where accessory dwelling units will be permissible. Our zoning is pretty, complex, and we don't want to do anything wrong prior to the state regulations come out. But our number one kind of security blanket is that we plan to work on the zoning bylaws with the planning board over the next few months and advertise those proposed changes in advance of the state effective date, which is February 2nd. And by providing notice of public hearing of revised zoning bylaws, it means that from that date forward, any actual construction would have to require with those contemplated changes if they're adopted by town meeting. So someone could come in and pull a permit and build an accessory dwelling unit, but if they build that contrary to the draft bylaws that we've issued public notice for, they'd ultimately have to go back and comply with it. So we can kind of get the best of both worlds through that procedural loophole.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for letting me ask the question.
Sure, Diana. That reminds me, Kevin, I had a question because in the select board meeting, there were 14 articles or 13 articles.
Yeah, there were originally a couple more. One of those was accessory dwelling units. There were two other zoning bylaw adjustments as well. The other overarching reason is that we need to focus on MBTA and get it right and have I'm sure there's going to be a wholesome debate about MBTA, not only at your public hearing, but also at town meeting. And 11 articles we think is enough. We want to make sure that we get it all done in one night.
Depends on your definition of debate.
All right,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. So
David, please.
I asked, before our guests leave, if I can just jump quick to 6 for new business, and then,
They'll be here.
oh, they'll be here? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were gonna let them go.
So,
Thank you.
Okay,
For those
so
guests that don't leave.
Can't get rid of it.
you're very appreciated, Kevin. So we'll review the meeting schedule as per the next item on the agenda. November 7th is our public hearing on the special town meeting warrant, which will be much more detailed than today's meeting. November 18th is the actual special town meeting. Times will be shared for that, right?
Yeah,
later.
historically, we have had the public hearing start at 6 PM, a little bit earlier, just to give more time. If that's fine, then we'll set that for 6 PM.
You're going back to the November
November
7th one,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
November 7th.
Yes, I think 6 PM would be a good time. Is everybody on board? 6 PM, yeah.
Okay.
I did have one
Sure.
point. I do want to remind everyone that we moved our finance committee up a week so that we can participate in next week's planning board, or at least, make sure we can view it. So I just want to bring that up. I think that's important to know that
Yes. Can do it either in person or
in person,
online.
online.
Okay, then we mentioned November 18th. The 21st of November will be our next FinCom meeting, and then December 19th. Does anybody have any issues or concerns with those dates? Very well. Now we can go on to other business. So I will call upon Mr. Remington to discuss one issue that he wants to bring to the committee's awareness.
So we adopted a financial model a few years ago, and it worked in several towns, and so we assumed it was going to kind of work here. After 4 cycles, 4 years, I don't think it's working, and I would like to talk about a new model. I think guaranteed sort of raises to the departments and how we work there, and assuming we're going to have these overrides forever, I think is probably something we should discuss, and how it would look and how we want it to be. So I suggest we have a roundtable, so it's not one of these meetings, but just have a roundtable with us and the town manager's office, if they'd like to join us, and talk about if there's going to be changes, what they would be, early enough that the word gets out to the departments. So we don't have people working on their budgets all the way up and they find out if we did make changes to what we're going to do, we're not going to guarantee 3%, guarantee 4.7%. If we're not going to do certain things we're doing now, they have the chance to go and make sure their budgets fit into what the new model is. So my suggestion is we do have a roundtable at a time appropriate to give the departments time to adjust to any changes we make. If that's fair.
Just have one.
Yes, please.
So we're an advisory board, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna advise on a new model. We can't actually create a model.
Right.
So what you wanna do, and I'm not against this at all, you wanna come up with a model that we think would work better for the town and propose that, but it would still be up to the town manager and the town itself to follow that or not.
But I think we could say that as a finance committee, the best next steps forwards are A, B, C, D, right? And if you don't comply with those, you risk us not approving, suggesting, requiring. You know what I mean? So if you come before us and you have a budget outside of what we're talking about, then we're not gonna vote for it. We're not gonna approve it.
Yep.
That's our power. And I
Yes,
think we have a right to do that. Even though we're an advisory board, I think we can say, looking forward, we do or don't like what we're doing, and this is what we as a board want.
Which is what we should be doing every one of these votes.
Correct. But we've already set forward and said, you have a guaranteed 3%, you have a guaranteed 4%.
Yep.
Do we want to continue that?
I don't know that we ever said if there's any guaranteed percentages.
We would need an input as far as what the current model is, because generally what comes to us is the budget. And if we were to understand the model, I mean, I think the first thing would be to understand the existing model.
May I ask a question? I know I'm relatively new, but when the model was developed, I mean, as a citizen watching the discussions of the select board and the school committee, it felt like they were the ones developing the model. What was the role of the finance committee at that time when that override and the override stabilization fund was occurring?
So if I recall properly, there was a joint meeting of the school committee and the select board and the finance committee. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. During that, I think to pick up on what Dennis had said before. So the Town Manager Act provides authority to me to create the budget. The financial model that's established is an agreement between the select board and the select board and the school committee on how they are going to approach their budgeting. And I understand what Mr. Remington is saying, but, you know, it is solely my authority to develop a budget, and I don't, you know, I understand what you're saying, your advisory authority, you may not recommend it, and I will take that into consideration, and I will work with the finance committee to develop an appropriate model, but it's my job to make sure that service levels are what they need to be to provide services to the community, and that may not always alter, you know, how I will approach that, and you know, I think that's it. It's my responsibility, according to the Town Manager Act and the charter of the community, to create the budget.
Just wanted to clarify, I understand that, and I think that's great. I was bringing up this question to set expectations at the finance committee level, that
Sure.
we can propose something, we can
Yeah.
come up with our own views, and I'm not, again, I'm not opposed to talking about something that we could recommend that might be better. Although I don't know the ins and outs of town, municipal budgeting, and I don't think anyone in this committee does, to the extent that Kevin does. But that's what it is. We will come up and we'll give you recommendations of why we think something works or doesn't work on the budget, and maybe, you know, we'll vote no based on what we agree with, or maybe we'll vote yes, or maybe we'll have a split vote, which I know some people watching this now, or possibly watching this now, would like to see at some point, that we all don't just agree. So,
If I may. So the goal of this is so we don't get to the final town meeting with the budget and we get up in front of the town meeting members, and we go, we don't approve it, the select board does approve it, and there's just chaos. You know, if we're not gonna approve something, and I'm not saying we will, but we don't approve it, and we have the chaos at the, and then we disapprove the budget. Last year, we talked about how difficult that would be to have that budget not approved. So if we have finance committee members speaking out against the budget, I think that's probably something we could avoid if we have a talk about what our expectations of the budget is. If that makes sense. And I hope you don't think I think you did anything inappropriate or wrong. I think you did exactly what you wanted. You changed the model to fit what other towns are doing, and you and I have talked about, I disagree sort of with the model. But I think you guys do great work there. But I do not like the model we're in. And I could not vote for a budget that followed that model, knowing that it's leading us down a road I feel is financially irresponsible. So I'm trying to avoid a town meeting conflict with different boards and not getting a budget passed because we didn't sit down and agree between the 9 of us what our expectations are, and then let the town manager know, and he can deal with it as he wishes.
So
I think Gene has a question.
Gene, please.
Just going back to the override, I believe that was a discussion between, at that time, it was the selectmen, the finance, and the school committee. And they put together some parameters and percentages that they wanted the manager to fulfill with the budget. Now, I think this is gonna become a very, and I'm all for this discussion, a very complicated thing, because you've gone down this path now for, we're in the 3rd year, 4th year. We've started to
Fifth year?
build.
Fifth year.
Fifth year of what we thought was going to be 4.
Yeah, well, the thing is now that we've built a reserve funds, which they talked about, and we've been able to add a little bit more in a couple of years, so it extends it out. I think because we're so deep into this right now, we'd be better off approaching this reserve fund and extending this thing out, and then gradually moving this modeling in, if that's what the committee wants, rather than say, this upcoming budget has to be this. That, to me, I think would be a disaster on the part of the town administration, the people that put the budget itself together. So I think, it's great to talk about it, but I think because we're so far into it, we're better off keeping that money flowing into that reserve and keeping it way out for a while we're working on this modeling. That's my opinion.
Just add one
Please.
comment. A couple of years ago with the strategic plan and the survey of the citizens and what they were looking for, a lot of what I read into that was really around, not just maintaining the services that the town provides to our citizens, but continuing to expand and improve those services. So, I appreciate that the model that we've had has allowed us to invest in the services that we've provided this community, both, through the school and the town. And so I would be a bit hesitant to support something that would decrease the services that we're providing to our community and go back to a place where our school, every single year, the budget was, what are we gonna cut in order to maintain a budget? I think that is not a place that I want our community to be in. So I wanna be thoughtful about, how we approach this so that we're giving the citizens of the community what they're asking for as far as services and the value that's provided. And I do think as a community, what our students get and the education that they get and the cost per student is phenomenal. Like, it's really, really impressive how good our schools are for what the budget is. And so I don't want to walk backwards on that. The investments that we're making in the services, I don't want to walk backwards on those things that we're doing. So that's a concern that I have, right?
If I just may add, I align a lot with Jean in terms of doing something too drastic. And I know, I mean, I respect this committee a lot, but do we have the skill sets and the knowledge to be able to redefine a model, given our backgrounds? I mean, as it was mentioned, we are an advisory board. So that is one of my biggest concerns. That's a question that leads to maybe to Kevin. Are there consultants who could basically provide an analysis of our model that could do a better job that we could do as a team, and then provide their inputs to us based upon which we can go forward? Like, is the model basically untenable for the future? I mean, there's a lot of mathematical analysis out there.
I would assume yes, right? I mean, you know, how specialized they are in the public sector, I'm not sure, right? You know, it is, you know, it is a financial model, right? There's some parts that are complicated and unique because it's a public model, and some parts that probably pale in comparison, right? It's a cash accounting model. It's not you know what I mean? There's some parts that are simple as well. I think one of the benefits of the model, and what we're happy to do and work with the committee in any way, is I think we do a really good job of defining the flaws and the shortfalls of, and when they're going to occur in the future, and what the impacts of a variety of percentages are, and how we trend those out. And we've never been shy to say anything but, you know, this is how long we think the money's going to last based upon these revenue figures. And as those revenue figures and expenditure figures change every year, like, we adjust the model and reproject outwards. And, you know, we're happy to have, you know, more of a workshop-like environment with the committee to talk those things through. But we've never shied away from, you know, identifying when we think, you know, we will be out of money from the reserve account, and when we'll need another override, and all those things. And I know Mr. Remington knows that as well, certainly. We've had those conversations. But we're happy to talk those things through. But if that's something that you would like us to explore, then, you know, that's something we can explore.
I was gonna say, when I first joined the committee, we had, and Mark Adler was chair, we actually had a bunch of small workshops with town manager explaining things. And what I would propose is, could we ask the town manager to come in and explain how he works with the current model, and what, you know, what they do and what he sees are benefits or not. I mean, I'm not against looking at, can we change the model?
Yeah.
And making a, but I think we really need to start at the basis and take our time. And
Yeah.
So
We need that information before we can.
so I
we
would
can
recommend.
Give advice. As was mentioned, we are an advisory committee.
Victor? I think one other point, I know you want to speak, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
From a longer term planning, like a visual picture, I, on a daily basis, deal with plans and projecting things out for 30 years. You know, I feel like we often are looking at a shorter term basis in some cases. So maybe for Mr. Remington and his thoughts, which I don't disagree as well as others, you know, what is the town's budget in 20 years? What's in a something like, and you know, how do you do that? And I'm not sure in a municipality, but that's essentially, I think, what we're all getting at is, how good or bad does it look based on this model or other ways of doing things?
David, please.
Like, I don't, you know, I want to keep the people we have and attract people. I want to improve our infrastructure, and I want to keep our schools well. And I think all that goes away if we don't pass an override. And this model is, we overspend, and I use that term, we spend more because we go and then we use our reserves to sort of our savings account to pay off our bills, and then have an override when we get an influx of money. If we don't have an override, we're not talking about we have a 3%, 4%, or 5% increase. We're talking about how many millions of dollars do we take away from every department. So it's a every time we have one of these, and they've only passed twice, and now we say we're going to do one every 4 or 5 years, given our track record of overrides, not having one is a financial catastrophe for everyone. All the departments are cut by millions. So I am just uncomfortable assuming that we'll have multiple overrides mixed in with construction projects in this town without them failing. And failure means absolute catastrophe for us. We take, again, millions away from everybody. So that's my goal, and I'm not saying let's go in and just wreck the model, change it. I am saying we have to know there's a danger. How do we mitigate that danger? And how to make sure that we're protecting people. We're an advisory committee, but we're put on the finance committee. And in my thoughts are, we still need to advise as best we can. And if we have concerns like I do about this model, then I think it's okay to talk about it. Maybe we make no changes.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to talk about it before we get into the weeds in the spring.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I agree with you right up front. I was just saying, setting expectations, we are an advisory committee. We can recommend changes, but we're not gonna enforce changes. I mean, we can vote no, but if we all vote no, it does not mean the budget doesn't pass.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So, as Jean mentioned, and Mr. Mazikar mentioned, I think maybe either we set up a subcommittee to understand if certain part of the committee wants to be part of it, and then review the model and the suggestions. Look into it, offer opportunities to improve. If there is an opportunity to improve, if we want to keep that as a more focused group. If everyone in the finance committee wants to be there, then yeah, we can all be there and educate ourselves, and also to see what the ways to improve, opportunity to improve those model. Model is a model, right? You put in different numbers, you get different outcomes. But I think, as Jean mentioned, I think it's not this budget cycle, but maybe it's an iterative process. So we look into it, we understand that, and we see where there is an opportunity, and then slowly try to capture those gaps, fill those gaps, and improve it over a period of time, so that we have more stabilized transition.
Just a quick clarifying question. So the concern is more around the town passing an override, not necessarily at a town meeting around the budget, correct?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my concern is that the model we're using, there's infinite amount of overrides. And since we've passed 2 of the last, 11, that, given that statistically, they're gonna fail at some point. Or the money we ask for construction products, like for the high school, will fail because we're just constantly hitting them with higher taxes. And if they do fail, now we're cutting $10 million off. Instead of adding 2 or 3%, we're cutting $10 million off. That's my concern.
But just to add to that concern, we do have a strategic plan that hopefully overshadows that or takes care of that fear. Will the strategic plan oriented more towards commercial growth within the town offset this fear? So, I mean, there are 2 aspects of the problem. One is the tactical, the actual budget, and then the overarching strategy that the town is taking for the future of the town. So I think we need to understand it from I think it's very valid, David, but we need to understand it better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to add one more comment, I think a concern also is gonna be the state and the federal government going forward, because it's getting to the point now where their budgets are really out of control in some way.
Yeah.
There's gonna have to be some cutbacks, and it's gonna be the cities and towns that are gonna have to take the hit on it. So I don't say it's gonna happen this year or next year, but it's gonna happen the way we're spending. There's no ifs, ands about it on there, so I think that's gonna be an important factor too, because we rely on the state and the federal government, especially in the schools, big percentage of dollars coming into the towns.
So, should we organize some educational session at a convenient meeting after the special town meeting? If Kevin, some presentations you could give as far as the existing model, how your current thinking is, just to educate us, so that we're in a better position to advise.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, normally the cadence of the committee's work is later in December and January. you know, because we don't present a budget until the end of February. So
Okay.
we could do that then.
So should we do January if that works for you?
Yeah, I mean, we can start in December. I mean, it's up to the committee, you know, we can provide those presentations. I mean, I will say that, you know, we would never put the town in a situation where we're facing a $10 million budget deficit, right? We have plans in place that we would slow that transition and that over time, right? That's why we update the model every year, so.
Okay, so we can start in December if everybody's.
Yeah.
Yeah, December's good.
Recommend
Yeah.
December.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
this-
I will say, I was involved in many of those overrides that failed,
Yeah.
and it was not a disaster. For some individual people who may have been laid off, it was a disaster, but overall, the town still survived. We've still kept our schools very good. I'd prefer not to be in the position where we're cutting teachers and all that, but I'm not gonna say it was a doomsday when a override has failed in the past.
Excellent. So, thank you, David. This was a great discussion and we're definitely gonna move forward on it.
Well,
So,
thank you for letting me talk.
Yeah. Are there any other items anybody would like to raise under the category of other business? Not, we should move to correspondence. We received 2 emails from Taylor Galusha. One was related to the town meeting member update on the special town meeting, sorry. Yeah, the special, regarding an update on the special town meeting. And the second email we received was regarding her Stay Connected Shrewsbury weekly email for the week of September 23rd. Any comments or questions regarding the correspondence we received? If not, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you all.